So we're just going to be talking a little bit about travel and entertainment expense, and we're looking at disbursement fraud. So according to one survey done by the Global Business Travel Association, in 2014, it was about $292 billion in the T&E industry. And that's projected to increase to $310 billion in 2017. Wow, that's a whopping 18 billion increase by year 2017. And this just goes to show that organizations are trying to take advantage of some of the benefits that are being offered through, these travel and entertainment programs, as opposed to, some of the traditional methods that were being used. So with that sort of increase, there needs to be tighter controls to ensure that you're not losing money and that employees are using their travel cards within policy. Traditionally, what used to happen is that auditors would look at a sample of the data, the travel expenses, on a periodic basis. But we have found that this isn't necessarily the best way to go about it, because you could miss some huge things by not looking at the entire population. So you want to get a full picture. And to get that full picture, you can take a look at, you can use data analytics to look at the entire data population. Because we know how difficult it is for you to sit and look through spreadsheets and emails and receipts. So once you have access to that data through the use of data analytics, you can examine the entire data population to make sure that you're not missing any exceptions or anomalies that could prove costly over the long run to your organization. So I mentioned a little bit in terms of the process. When you identify those exceptions within your program, how do you remediate them? There must be some process in place to remediate these exceptions. Typically, people would do this through a series of emails. However, this can be found to be pretty inefficient because, the email could get lost in a pile, and it's not easy to track the resolution. So within a continuous monitoring platform that we provide, you're able to make sure that the remediation process holds through, that it's completed, that resolution that you need to get to is being met. So that's one of the key processes, or key pieces, and this saves a lot of time and headache for process owners like T&E managers and P-card managers. So one of the things we realize that companies that don't effectively manage their programs risk the loss of assets and, worse, the reputational damage. And we have seen this in a couple of cases. So let's just look at a case here with a CTO of Blue Shield who got fired for spending over $100,000. He had trips and vacations with his girlfriend. He had a $1,382 charge for drinks at a nightclub. These are this sort of thing what you don't want to happen within your T&E program. You want to ensure that your employees stay within policy, because if word gets out of this sort of thing happening, it could spell reputational damage. This is unneeded or unnecessary attention that most companies would want to do without. So with our platform, you can protect your company's resources and reputation while growing your T&E program, because what you really don't want is that because of some exceptions or certain number of risks that have been popping up. You don't want to close down your program or reduce the number of travel cards or P cards that are being offered. You want to have a culture of compliance. You want to trust your employees and you want to empower them. You know, you want to take away the hassle, you know, of booking a flight or, you know, or a hotel or paying a taxi fare or, you know, purchasing food at a restaurant. You want to make it seamless so that the employees can focus on the business objectives for those trips. And with that, you know, we are offering that sort of comfort. So let's take a look at a couple scenarios. You know, a question you could ask is, you know, how many cities can you travel in one day? It's okay to say that you traveled from Miami to New York within a day, but if you're saying, if an employee is claiming that he traveled to Miami, New York, Frankfurt, and Berlin, that's something that you will probably need to investigate because, you know, that's probably not possible. And in one case, what we realized was that the employee was actually booking flights for friends and family members. You know, so this is an indication. So you can actually look to identify this sort of situation. We can look at the travel date, the cities, the airlines, and so on and so forth to determine if it's something untoward or something rational or reasonable. Another thing you can look at is employees claiming the same expense. So for instance, you have a couple of sales guys and they're dealing with a deal. They have a deal going and they're trying to close the deal with the prospect. So they'll take the prospect to lunch or dinner. And you have a couple of attendees. And you'll find that the two employees could be claiming for the same expense. However, it was just one person who used their card to pay for dinner for all the attendees. You know, so you want to prevent that sort of thing, so we can look and identify these sorts of duplicates by looking at the vendor, the time, the amount, and all of that sort of data to identify these duplicate expenses. Another thing we can look at is this is another duplicate, and we're looking at a duplicate expense being made by a single card holder. In the previous one, we were looking across two employees making that duplicate expense claim. But here, it's just an employee who used their corporate card or their travel card to pay for a flight. However, that same employee is claiming a reimbursement, saying that they used their money from their pockets to pay for that flight. You know, we can detect this sort of thing also by looking at the data from the expense report and also looking at the card data as well. So I'm just going to take you into a little demonstration. We're going to look at a case and we're going to see how we can use CaseRemonter's platform to identify and manage exceptions within a workflow. So CaseRemonter had sent me an alert saying that an exception was assigned to me for a revision. And in this scenario, James Harold Penny, he made a purchase at Hilton Aberdeen while he was traveling on company duties, and through our analytics, we flagged this as a personal purchase. So if you see here, the MCC group, personal services, MCC code, health and beauty spas, and here we have the transaction details. We're providing the purchase date, vendor name, and the amount, GL code, etc. You'll also notice here on the right-hand side we have a history. So you remember we spoke about, you know, trying to remediate these exceptions through emails and messages and so on and so forth. It's a little bit difficult to do that sort of thing. But within this platform, you have all the evidence here. You can have attachments. You can look at the history to see all the steps that were done or are completed by persons within that remediation process. We can also look at related work items. Are there any other items that were generated for James R.L. Penny? So you can take a look at those. So here you'll see a duplicate across AP and P card and personal purchases and so on and so forth. So, and in addition to that, we also have a set of resolution guidelines that will help persons to remediate the exceptions that are generated in a standard manner. Because you don't necessarily want someone who's new to the process to start investigating something and they don't know what the steps are. So you can provide these sets of resolution guidelines to each person that is involved in the remediation process. So in talking about that, in this platform we have an automated workflow. So I'm just going to show you a little bit here. And this one is a little bit complex, but we can make the workflow very simple, and this is all configurable. It's down to the process that you have in place in your organization. So it can be very, very complex, or it can be very simple. And everything within the workflow is recorded. All the steps and history, is recorded so that you can look back at it at a later date and you can look at the resolution of that particular exception. On each step in the workflow, we have a turnaround time. So we can specify how much time someone should take to look at this exception. If it's sitting too long in their queue, then we can escalate that item to probably a manager or a supervisor who will need to take a look at this. So that's from the workflow standpoint. We also have different views within the solution. So that's the workflow view, and I showed you the exception in a detailed view just earlier on. But we also have a grid view, and this allows you to work on exceptions or manage exceptions in sort of batch mode. So I could select one or multiple exceptions, and I could perform an action. I could reassign them to someone in my group. Let's say I'm going on vacation, and there's an exception that's assigned to me, and I won't be able to deal with it in time. I could assign it to probably Ashley, who's a member of my compliance department or the audit department, to take a look at it. And I could add a comment. And I could assign that to Ashley. If I have supporting documentation that I want Ashley to know about or review while investigating this exception, I could also upload an attachment.